This is Seahawks Today. I am your host, Will Ortner, and it's high time that the Seattle Seahawks took care of one Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Find a way to pay the man because he's definitely earned it. Someone else has also earned their pay as well, and I think that is Devon Witherspoon. The guy has been absolutely fantastic on the defensive end, and as a cornerback that's willing to blitz and make big hits, well, those guys just don't really grow on trees. Everyone knew that coming into this offseason, the Seahawks were going to make a plan where they were going to, at minimum, attempt to extend both Jaxon Smith-Njigba and Devon Witherspoon. And at this point, I think it's clear, extend them both as soon as possible. There's a multitude of different reasons, and we're going to get into those reasons on today's show. But I think the most important thing at the end of the day is get the deal done now. Because if you can get this deal done, well, then you can focus on re-signing other players that are going to go into free agency or signing new free agents, and you're going to understand at the end of the day how much salary cap space you truly have. So if I'm the Seattle Seahawks, get the deals done ASAP. But before we do any of the conversations that we have around the Seahawks, Jaxon Smith-Njigba and Devon Witherspoon, I got to let you know about another deal. And that's our St. Patrick's Day merch here at chatsports.com/cgreen. Look at how sweet the Drinking Team shirt is. It's so fresh. It's so fly. We got the navy blue as well as the green because I know you don't want to get pinched on St. Patrick's Day. Super affordable t-shirts. They're only $29.99. Super easy. You're going to be the talk of the town. All you have to do is go into the comment section or description of today's video. We're going to have a link. You click that link, it'll take you right where you need to be, and you can join the Seahawks Today Drinking Team. So go pick up your t-shirt now while supplies still last. Do the smart thing. The Seattle Seahawks need to get ahead of these two contracts. I think that we have seen General Manager John Schneider do a great job in the National Football League of understanding when to pay a player and when not to pay a player. We saw it with Abe Lucas where he came in, and as soon as he could extend him, he did. So the Seahawks didn't have to worry about a potential contract dispute later on. I also thought it was very smart from John Schneider to understand when to pay Charles Cross, right? Go in, give him his extension. Maybe even slightly overpay for both Lucas and for Cross early on because you know that deal is going to look a lot sweeter here in the next coming years. What a lot of teams in the National Football League don't always realize is that it's better to pay a guy a little bit extra early and let that contract look better and better as the years go on. What do I mean by that? I mean, look at Patrick Mahomes' contract. When he was originally offered it, he's going to make $500 million. But now when you look at an average year per basis for his salary cap and what he counts against the Chiefs' salary cap, it's actually a lot less than a bunch of other quarterbacks in the National Football League. So pay JSN, pay Devon Witherspoon, and those contracts will look better later on. When we look at the NFL salary cap space right now, Tennessee Titans, Las Vegas Raiders, and LA Chargers are all up near the very top. Then, of course, it's the Jets, Commanders, and Seahawks. Seahawks in that sixth spot in the National Football League when it comes to most salary cap space. I think that's important to note because it means that the Seahawks have the money to extend both of these players. This isn't a situation where the Seahawks are going to have to pick and choose. If I'm General Manager John Schneider, I'm paying them both, and I'm paying them both quickly. Now, I'm going to go through my plan for the Seahawks offseason and how they handle both of these contracts. And the very first thing to me is just take care of Jaxon Smith-Njigba. We saw how valuable he was this year to the Seahawks, and it doesn't make any sense to kind of lead him along. It doesn't make any sense to not pay him right away. Go in and take care of this contract ASAP. He's the NFL Offensive Player of the Year for a reason, and I think that we're only seeing him really touch the surface of what can be his prime. Now, JSN has made it very clear that he does expect to be the highest paid wide receiver in the National Football League, and I actually agree with him, and this isn't just looking at what he did for 1 year. Here's what JSN said about what he wants his future deal to look like. I'm really not too pressed right now to get it done, which I do think that's very important for the Seahawks. I know my time is coming, and when we get it done, it's going to be a great deal. God's timing is perfect timing, so whenever that may come, we'll be ready for it. I believe I deserve to be the highest paid in my position. Just what I give to the game and the community, I give it my all. And I think that's worth a lot more. We're going to dive into what that means and why I would pay him more than any other wide receiver in the National Football League, because I don't know how long he would have that number, but I think it's important for the Seahawks to do right by him in the long run to keep that relationship the way that it needs to be. Before we do that, hit that sub button. We're trying to catch our Knicks Now channel, and this is the perfect week to do it. The NBA season, they're starting to ramp up, but you know what's ramping up right now in the National Football League? Draft talk, because the NFL Combine is rapidly approaching. Rapidly. If you don't want to miss any of the Combine talk, any of the free agency talk, any of the draft talk, hit that sub button. Let's catch Knicks Now and become the Jaxon Smith-Njigba number here at Chat Sports. What do I mean by that? Seahawks Today passes Knicks Now. We will be the 11th biggest channel here at Chat Sports. So when we look at the highest paid wide receivers per year, JSN has made it clear that he wants to be right around that $40.25 million per year. And I actually think that I would be okay with Jaxon Smith-Njigba coming in and getting close to that mark. When I look at how well he has performed this year, but also how well he has performed throughout his career as a Seattle Seahawk, I think that he has been very, very good. When you look at his career stats, JSN has gotten better every single year, but more importantly, he's gone through a different offensive coordinator every single year. Understand that. This is a guy who hasn't had the same offensive coordinator all the way through. So every year he's having to learn something new, learn something different. He's stayed relatively healthy, and he's well on pace right now to be one of the all-time greats when it comes to being a Seattle Seahawks wide receiver. Don't mess with any of this. Obviously, JSN is different than most receivers. He's not going to do a Terrell Owens, go into his driveway and start doing crunches, push-ups, lifting weights, and saying, I don't want to be a distraction to the Eagles. That's not what JSN is going to do. But that doesn't mean that the Seahawks can afford to play around with his contract. Do not piss him off. Find a way to pay him what he deserves, and find a way to come to a contractual agreement that he feels good about. If that number is that $40 million number, hey, that's going to hurt a little bit, but I do think it is worth it to pay JSN that much. If it ends up coming down a little bit, well, that's even better. Find a way to make JSN happy, whether it's from the total value of the contract, maybe give him extra years if you can't give him the same amount of money per year, or find a way to make it super incentive-based. Whatever you got to do, pay JSN now. Avoid all the BS. Should JSN be the highest paid wide receiver in the National Football League? Let me know down below in the comment section. I have made it clear that I think the Seahawks need to do whatever it takes to get the deal done, and if that means making him the highest paid wide receiver, then they should do it. If you think he should be the highest paid wide receiver, type yes. If you think he shouldn't, make sure you go in and type no. My next plan, believe it or not, extend Devon Witherspoon. It just makes sense. They both came in the same draft. They were both first-round picks. And Devon Witherspoon right now, I believe, is one of the best defensive players in the National Football League, and I don't think that he actually gets enough credit for it because he doesn't do things normally. When we look at Devon Witherspoon, he's actually sneaky really important to this football team, and it might not even be fair to say sneaky just because of all the different things that he does. He's not afraid to line up in the slot and come in on a blitz. He had multiple sacks in the Super Bowl. How many other cornerbacks have multiple sacks in a season, let alone in a Super Bowl? He's a guy who's not afraid to hit. He's a guy who isn't afraid to bang down low. He's a guy who isn't afraid to go after opposing wide receivers. If he gets beat one play, he's going to come back and make sure that he puts himself in a good spot so he doesn't get beat again. And the way that McDonald wants to craft this defense is actually very important to the longevity of this team. So when I look at McDonald and how he creates a defense, it's about finding a bunch of different players that do a bunch of different things and do a bunch of different things in a crazy way, right? When you look at a guy like Devon Witherspoon, he can play in the slot, he can play corner, he can play at the safety position if they really need him to. Shoot, sometimes he can even line up at a linebacker spot. Now, Nicky Manwari obviously does a much better job of some of those things than Devon Witherspoon does, but it is important to note that he can do all of these great things. And so we're going to see what we're going to see what Devon Witherspoon had to say about Mike Macdonald's defense and why it's so important that he adds himself into that here in just one moment.
I mean, I don't think it was a tough transition, to be honest, man. Like I said, when you see the body of work Coach McDonald had put on tape already, it's easy to buy in to the things that he wants you to do. And he puts you in a position to make plays, man. So it's kind of easy to buy in and transition to his scheme.
Now, I think that's really important what we're listening to there by Devon Witherspoon talking about Mike Macdonald's defense and why he's so important. Macdonald doesn't want a bunch of robots. He doesn't want to go draft a guy who just plays left side corner. He doesn't want to draft a guy who just plays strong safety. He wants to draft a great player, a great athlete, a freak athlete, and then design a defense around their strengths. And Devon Witherspoon clearly does a great job of that. Keep the great players in Seattle. Now, does he deserve to be the highest paid cornerback in the National Football League? No, probably not, but it is important to note that he deserves to be pretty darn high up there, and I'm okay if the Seahawks are giving him close to that Derek Stingley Jr. contract. Here's the thing, though. If you're the Seattle Seahawks, you need to pay Witherspoon sooner rather than later because Christian Gonzalez is going to be up for a new deal. And I'll tell you right now, Gonzalez is going to break the bank. He will be the number one paid cornerback. So if the Seahawks want to get a deal done with Spoon, it makes sense to get it done sooner rather than later so they can get that contract on the books before Christian Gonzalez's contract gets up there. So then Devon Witherspoon isn't going to John Schneider and saying, well, if Christian Gonzalez paid that, I should be paid more than him, or I should be paid closer to him. When you look at the stats for Devon Witherspoon, the guy does everything right now in the National Football League. He makes a ton of tackles, and his tackle numbers would be much higher in 25 if he didn't have to miss all those games at the beginning of the year. Now, he doesn't get a ton of interceptions, but that's because a lot of other teams do not try him, and it's the same thing with the pass breakups. Teams don't want to throw the football at him. Why? Because he's so freaking good. So pay the guy what he wants, man. Find a way to get the deal done. Obviously, there has to be a conversation because you can't just start throwing money around willy-nilly, right? If you're the Seattle Seahawks, you have to find a spot where you feel comfortable giving Spoon and JSN their contracts without breaking the bank. Because at the end of the day, you can't just pay both of these guys and expect the defense to be the same and the offense to be the same because you're going to lose some key players. But find a way to come up with a compromise that more favors Witherspoon and JSN. Keep them happy. Keep them in Seattle. They are too valuable. Bleacher Report, literally at the time of our recording, put out this article where they gave salary projections for both JSN and Devon Witherspoon, along with a couple other players in the National Football League. They projected JSN at 4 years, $152 million. Now, that would not put him at the highest paid wide receiver position. I do find that interesting. I think that number is going to be a little bit north of that. When you look at Devon Witherspoon, he's at 4 years, $124, which would put him in the ballpark for being the highest paid corner. I don't know if that ends up being where he's at. In fact, I think it might be a little bit lower than that. But this is going to give all of us a ballpark of about what they could potentially be earning when we get this contract extension that is going to come in before May 1st. And I'll tell you why it's important that that contract extension comes in before May 1st in just a moment. But before I do that, I need to make sure that you know to share this video on social media. We're trying to grow the Seahawks Today family. The best way to do that is by you guys helping us out and sharing the video with your friends who bleed blue and green and love the Seattle Seahawks. Got a little ahead of my skis there, but I do want to make sure that the last part of my plan gets emphasized greatly, and that's that the Seattle Seahawks need to re-sign multiple key players. I think the more and more that I look into the Jaxon Smith-Njigba and Devon Witherspoon extensions, the more I realize that the Seahawks aren't going to be able to re-sign every key free agent that is out there from the team. I think it is important then that the Seahawks become picky and choosy and understand that when you look at the 4 key free agents that are going to be unrestricted for the Seattle Seahawks, that's Kenneth Walker, Rashid Shaheed, Coby Bryant, Riq Woolen. Not all 4 of those guys are going to come back. And in fact, it does feel like Riq Woolen probably is already out the door. So that means you got to pick 2 of the 3 of those guys left between Walker, Rashid Shaheed, and Coby Bryant and make sure that they come back to this team. Get at least 2 of those guys back. Find a way to work out a contract with at least 2 of those guys because you still need to keep the defense strong. You still need to keep the offense strong. And then the Seahawks are going to have to do a great job in the NFL draft of finding new, young, talented players to come in and add to the offense or the defense, just depending on the position that they play. It is important that the Seahawks continue to not just bite their hand off in this situation, right? They need to make sure that they don't just pay JSN and just pay Devon Witherspoon and then let everyone else go. So there has to be some sort of commitment and some sort of compromise between the organization and those players. I still think there's a way to walk a very, very, very narrow line where the Seahawks pay to keep both those guys, but also leave enough money and cap space left over to go sign a couple of key unrestricted free agents. It's also important to note that the Seahawks have to make a decision on the fifth-year options for both JSN and Witherspoon by May 1st. Right now, at the time of this recording, it is February 23rd. So the Seahawks basically have about 2 months before they have to make a decision on whether they're going to give the fifth-year option or whether they're going to get the extension. So we know that the next 2 months are going to be key, and don't be shocked if you find out about an extension that comes in for those guys right here and right now. If the Seahawks do not extend them in that time, they are for sure going to sign up for that fifth-year option and then continue to work on an extension as the offseason goes on. Let me know a player that the Seattle Seahawks need to re-sign this offseason. I don't care what player it is. It could be Kenneth Walker, Rashid Shaheed. It could be Coby Bryant, Riq Woolen, or a multitude of other different candidates for this Seahawks team. Let me know down below in the comment section what player you think is a must-keep in Seattle. Of course, hit the thumbs up button on today's video. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. You love the Seattle Seahawks. We love giving you the content that you want to see. And make sure you hit that subscribe button. The NFL Combine is here. Believe it or not, today. Players are starting to get out to Indy. We're going to have a ton of NFL Combine content. We're going to have different videos on things that were said by Seahawks head coach Mike Macdonald, by John Schneider, potential players that the Seahawks could look for in the draft. And of course, because all the teams are in Indy, this is the perfect time to start hearing about potential trade rumors, free agent signings, all those great things. You don't want to miss out on any of that, so make sure that you hit that sub button. Thank you guys so much for viewing today's video, and I cannot wait to see you next time.